Hi, I'm Tariq Melrose. You ever tried to make sense of a speech that sounded like it was written by a chatbot with commitment issues? Yeah, me too. That's why I'm here, to dissect the doublespeak, highlight the absurdity, and maybe, just maybe, spark a little hope for common sense. Subscribe now. This isn't just commentary, it's a public service. Senator Kennedy explodes into full MAGA meltdown, attacking courts, experts, and truth, then chokes on his own hypocrisy. Don't miss this unhinged courtroom circus where Republican rage meets zero logic. Tune in now for the full breakdown, exclusively on Tariq Melrose Vlogs.
I mean, under most circumstances, we follow the government and private parties follow court orders. I suppose it's not, I would not rule out ever the possibility that in a sufficiently egregious order, there should be some consideration of whether there's a way.
So in some cases,
I think it's a qualified answer, yes.
In some cases you would.
In an extremely narrow band of cases, I think it would be considered, yes.
Okay. Do any of you think that nationwide or universal injunctions are not being abused?
I'm not sure what if I may, Senator, I'm not sure what the time horizon of the question is. I don't think that there could be good faith disagreements about the correctness of some of them, but I have not seen in the last 4 months abuse. No.
I've read your stuff, and I've read your writings, and I don't want to get bogged down with this, but I have little respect for your opinion because I've read your stuff. When someone is in the White House that you agree with and someone gets a universal injunction against him, you don't like universal injunctions. You called them judges acting like they're politicians in robes and judges looking like crass political actors. But now that President Trump's in the White House, who you dislike, you think that universal injunctions taste like pumpkin pie. So I have to discount what you say because I think you act on your political beliefs. And I worry that that's what you're teaching your kids. So I'll leave you out of that. Do you think nationwide injunctions are being abused?
Certainly, Senator. I think that is.
They're being abused by both sides, aren't they?
Yes, Senator.
Both Republicans and Democrats are forum shopping, aren't they?
Certainly.
Professor, do you disagree with that?
I think both sides are abusing them. I agree.
Okay. Both sides.
Yeah.
There are no clean hands here. Now, your suggestion is that when a federal judge issues a nationwide injunction, there should be an automatic stay and an expedited right of appeal. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Do you disagree with that?
I haven't given enough thought to have a position on it, Senator.
I suspect, Professor, your answer will be it depends on who's president.
No, Senator.
Let me ask you about this. What if we had a rule? I was reading an article the other day. I'm not suggesting it. I just want your opinions. That said, if a president, any president, issues an executive order, let's say, that clearly violates settled Supreme Court precedent, that a federal judge can't issue a nationwide injunction. For example, if a federal a president issued an order that said no one in America has right to counsel any longer, including but not limited to, in a felony case, having the government pay for your lawyer if you can't afford it. That clearly violates settled Gideon v. Wainwright. In that case, a judge has no authority or does have authority to issue a nationwide injunction. But in a case where the law is unclear, a judge should refrain from that. Now, obviously, we'd have to to trust our judges, but we're supposed to be able to trust them anyway. What do you think about that?
I don't agree with that, Senator, because I think universal injunctions transgress the limitations under Article 3, even if the underlying merits are clear.
I happen to agree with you. I don't think there's any basis under Article 3, under Supreme Court precedent, under the English common law for nationwide injunctions. I think politicians have helped judges, and many judges are politicians, to just make it up. And many of them are like Professor Shaw here. If they like the president, they're against nationwide injunctions. If they don't like the president, they're for him. Professor, let me ask you this while I have you. On April 22nd, 2024, you said there are some members of the Supreme Court that are evil. Which justices were you talking about?
I'll take it your word, Senator. I don't recall using that word, but
All right, here's what you said. You were talking about the majority opinion in Muldrow v. City of St. Louis. You said, quote, Justice Kagan, will she be able to control the opinion's future distortion by her evil colleagues? Probably not, end quote. Who were you talking about?
sir, I'm very skeptical. If it's a transcription, it was probably a transcription error. I do not think I said.
No, you said it. Why don't you own up to it? Which you call some members of the Supreme Court evil. Now, which ones do you think are evil?
I would have to refresh my recollection. I've been very critical
You're
of some
embarrassed
members of the
that
Supreme
you made
Court.
that statement, aren't you?
I'm
You're an
telling
officer
Senator, it
of the
doesn't sound
court.
like something that
You know
I
what
would
I'm
say.
embarrassed at? That you're teaching our kids.
I don't refer to Supreme Court justices as evil
Did,
in the
right here,
in the classroom,
on
sir.
your podcast, April 22nd, 2024.
Okay, well,
Big as Dallas. And you're an officer of the court, and you're here advising us to be respectful to federal judges, and you say they're evil members of the United States Supreme Court? Gag me with a spoon.
If you needed a perfect snapshot of how broken Republican discourse has become, how disconnected from logic, law, and basic decency it really is, look no further than Senator John Kennedy's performance in this hearing. What started as a supposedly serious discussion about nationwide injunctions quickly descended into a full-blown MAGA-style courtroom tantrum. And if you blinked, you might have missed the moment when Kennedy stopped pretending to be a senator and started acting like a Fox News pundit doing open mic night at CPAC. Let's start with what this was supposed to be about: the legal debate over whether federal judges can issue nationwide injunctions, broad court orders that halt government actions for the entire country, not just for the parties involved in a case. It's a complicated question. There are real arguments to be made on both sides. But instead of engaging with that in good faith, Kennedy used the opportunity to launch a personal attack on one of the witnesses, Professor Shaw, who had the audacity to express views he didn't like. Now, was Professor Shaw inconsistent over time? Maybe. Was he upfront about how political context can color legal interpretation? Yes, in fact, he admitted that. That's called intellectual honesty, something Kennedy wouldn't recognize if it bit him on the Senate floor. But rather than engage with ideas or the complexity of legal precedent, Kennedy did what MAGA Republicans do best. He smeared, mocked, and deflected. He openly told Shaw, "I have little respect for your opinion because I've read your stuff." Translation: you disagreed with Trump, so I've pre-decided you're a hack. That's not jurisprudence, that's tribalism. And it's why we can't have rational constitutional debates anymore, because Republicans like Kennedy have traded legal consistency for cult loyalty. Even more absurd was Kennedy's repeated accusation that Shaw thinks nationwide injunctions taste like pumpkin pie when applied against Trump, but calls them a travesty when they block Biden. Cute metaphor, Senator. But let's be real. You didn't come here for consistency. You came for theater. You came to score MAGA points by owning the libs, not to grapple with the fact that the Trump administration was, objectively and repeatedly, found to be violating the Constitution. Let's not forget, many of these so-called political judges were appointed by Republican presidents, yet when they rule against Trump, they're suddenly traitors in robes. But when they hand down rulings that support conservative causes, striking down reproductive rights, gutting voting protections, they're suddenly paragons of judicial restraint. You want to talk about hypocrisy? That's it, wrapped in a flag and carrying a Bible upside down. And then Kennedy veered from judicial critique to full-blown culture war performance art. He dragged out an alleged quote from Professor Shaw calling Supreme Court justices evil and used it as a reason to be embarrassed that Shaw teaches students. Let's pause here. A sitting U.S. senator just tried to cancel an academic for being critical of the Supreme Court. That's not just dangerous, it's authoritarian. It's the exact opposite of the First Amendment protections Republicans claim to cherish. And of course, Kennedy didn't even bother verifying the quote. Shaw said it sounded like a mistranscription. Kennedy didn't care. He wasn't looking for clarity. He was looking for a viral clip, something to stir up the GOP base by playing victim while pretending to defend judicial integrity. That's the Republican playbook: suppress dissent while screaming about free speech. But here's the real kicker. The most revealing part of Kennedy's rant came when he floated a hypothetical about a president issuing an executive order that strips Americans of their right to counsel. He then argued that, even in such a clear-cut constitutional violation, he still wouldn't support a nationwide injunction. Think about that. In his rush to attack the judiciary, Kennedy basically said that no court should be allowed to stop a president from violating Gideon versus Wainwright, one of the most foundational rulings in American legal history. That's not just dangerous, that's anti-democratic. This is what happens when your loyalty to a political party, or worse, to a single man, overrides your loyalty to the Constitution. You end up justifying authoritarianism. You end up attacking scholars for doing their jobs. You end up in front of America looking like a man who doesn't care about the law at all, unless it serves your side. Let's be blunt. Kennedy doesn't care about nationwide injunctions. He doesn't care about Article 3, judicial precedent, or the English common law he loves to name drop. What he cares about is power. And right now, that means defending Trump at all costs, even if it means undermining the legal tools that have protected Americans from government abuse for decades. He claims he's worried about judges acting politically, but then turns around and demands ideological purity from the bench. He claims to respect the courts, but disrespects any judge who doesn't fall in line. He claims to be concerned about the rule of law, but trashes it every time it gets in the way of Republican power. In the end, the entire exchange was a textbook example of GOP projection. Kennedy accuses others of politicizing the courts, while making everything political. He warns that our system can't survive if judges act like politicians, while acting like the most partisan hack in the room. And he accuses an academic of bias, while demonstrating that he has no interest in anything that doesn't align with his pre-scripted MAGA narrative. So what should we take away from this mess? 1, the judiciary matters more than ever. 2, we must defend the independence of our legal system from politicians who want to turn it into a MAGA kangaroo court. And 3, we need to call out this behavior for what it is: anti-American, anti-democratic, and completely unfit for public office. This has been Tariq Melrose, and you've been watching Tariq Melrose Vlogs. If you're tired of watching Republicans like John Kennedy treat the Constitution like toilet paper just to protect Donald Trump, hit that subscribe button, share this video, stay informed, stay loud, and stay ready, because the real battle for America isn't just at the ballot box. It's in every courtroom they're trying to control. Until next time, let's keep the receipts rolling.